County 911, what's the address of your emergency?
122 Cambridge Drive.
NJ Police Fire EMS.
I'm sorry? I think I might have a debt.
Okay, let me connect you
I
to...
walked in my fiance's house. She wouldn't answer my call. There's a very weird smell. I can't get her to come around.
Okay, let me...
It's all over the floor.
Let me connect.
All right, do you think that she's not viable? Tell me why you think she's dead.
So you want to call
Eyes are open. Okay. All right.
There's a lot of blood.
And a lot of blood. Okay.
On October 13th, 2021, police received a call from a man reporting the death of Christina Parcell, his fiancée, at 122 Canebrake Drive. The haunting scene was filled with blood and rose petals scattered throughout the room, like some pagan ritual. What happened to Christina? A random attack or a sinister plan? Join us as we explore this mysterious case. Greer, South Carolina is a small, peaceful city with about 40,000 residents, often praised as livable, an ideal place to raise children, though locals sometimes complain about traffic as more people move in from big cities. But in October 2021, that peace was shattered by a chilling murder at 122 Canebrake Drive. On October 13, 2021, Bradley Post, a 68-year-old man, went to the home of his fiancée, Christina Parcell, after failing to reach her. Christina, 41, was a beloved veterinary technician in nearby Greenville. That morning, she had a job interview, so Bradley thought she might be nervous and forgot to answer her phone. He decided to stop by the house, her sister's home, where she and her daughter were living, to check on her. Entering through the back door, which was never locked, Bradley immediately sensed an eerie silence. No TV, no radio, just a faint chemical smell in the air. He walked down a dark hallway and suddenly noticed rose petals scattered on the floor. Following them into the living room, he faced a horrifying sight. Christina lay motionless on the floor, covered in blood, surrounded by rose petals like some bizarre ritual. Panicked, Bradley called the police, reporting that his fiancée had been murdered. That call at 11 a.m. that day sparked a dark and mysterious investigation. Christina Parcell, the victim, left a strong impression on those who knew her. At 41, she worked as a veterinary technician in Greenville, a job she loved and where she was cherished by colleagues and clients alike. People remembered Christina as someone who always tried to bring smiles, with a lively personality and a warm heart. A co-worker once said she'd walk clients to their cars after shifts, leaving them in tears of laughter from her funny stories. To the dogs at the clinic, Christina was a special friend, always gentle and caring. But her life wasn't all happy days. She was a mother to a young daughter called A, whom she loved more than anything. A was the center of Christina's world, but also the source of major troubles. Christina and her ex-husband, John Mellow, had long been separated and locked in a bitter custody battle spanning years, intense enough to cross the borders of the U.S. and Italy. John, a 63-year-old Italian-American, once took A to Italy without notifying Christina or the court, forcing her to fight through the Italian legal system to bring her daughter back to the U.S. This battle wasn't just legal, it was filled with personal accusations and deep-seated hatred. At the time of her murder, Christina was living with her daughter at her sister Latina Parcell's house in Greer. She was also engaged to Bradley Post, a man 27 years her senior after 5 years of dating. Bradley, a wealthy man, supported Christina financially through her trips to Italy in legal battles. But this relationship, along with Christina's past, once working as a prostitute under the name Sweet Caroline Warren, raised doubts from John Mellow. He believed Christina and Bradley were unsafe for A, a fear that would later lead to devastating consequences. When police arrived at the scene, they confirmed Christina had been stabbed over 30 times, with signs of a fierce struggle and the killer's DNA under her nails. A neighbor's camera showed a man appearing within the time frame of the murder. He wore a black hoodie, carried a backpack, entered Christina's house, and left on a bicycle afterward. Who was he, and why? The clues at the scene were just the beginning of a more horrifying truth. John Mellow, Christina Parcell's ex-husband, 63, is an Italian-American. John was once a prominent music producer, working with big names like the Rolling Stones, Elton John, and Neil Young. Born in Massachusetts, he lived in various places, from Los Angeles, where he owned a bar called Doll Hood, to Greenville, South Carolina, settling there in 2004. John's life was turbulent. 2 previous marriages ended badly, and he often tangled with the law over harassment and personal disputes. John met Christina in 2008 when he was 20 years her senior. Their relationship was dramatic, falling in love, breaking up, and getting back together over and over. In 2012, they welcomed their daughter A, but the happiness didn't last. After their divorce, John and Christina fell into a fierce custody battle. John was once granted custody of A by a U.S. court, but Christina retained visitation rights. In 2020, however, John abruptly took A to Italy without informing the court, authorities, or Christina, violating the order. Christina had to travel to Italy and fight through its courts to bring her daughter back. That struggle left both sides exhausted and deeply resentful. When Christina was murdered on October 13th, 2021, John was in Italy. This ruled him out as a direct suspect, but it didn't mean he was uninvolved. Police found stacks of documents about the custody dispute in Christina's home, along with packets containing explicit photos from her days as a prostitute. John believed her past and her relationship with Bradley Post put A at risk. He had accused Christina and Bradley of abusing A, though he lacked concrete proof at the time. John returned to the U.S. on October 21, 2021, a week after the murder, and was immediately arrested for violating the custody order. Still, he insisted he only wanted to shield A from what he saw as a toxic environment. But did that fear drive him to darker actions? Bradley Post, Christina Parcell's fiancé, 68, was 27 years older than her and had been with her for 5 years before proposing in early 2021. A wealthy man, he often supported Christina financially, from her trips to Italy for custody battles to her daily life. When he entered the house at 122 Canebrake Drive on the morning of October 13th, 2021, Bradley was the one who found Christina's body and called the police. At that moment, he seemed like a grieving man who'd lost his fiancée. But as the investigation began, Bradley's image quickly came under suspicion. As the first person at the scene, he was a key figure to question thoroughly. 6 days after the murder, on October 19th, police seized his phone under a search warrant. What they found stunned everyone. A trove of child pornography, CP, including images involving A, Christina, and John Mellow's daughter. This revelation not only shocked investigators, but also lent weight to accusations John had made, that Bradley and Christina might be abusing A. The next day, Bradley was arrested and faced 6 charges related to child sexual exploitation. Evidence from his phone suggested he wasn't just possessing this material, he might have been involved in producing it. This raised questions. Did Christina know about Bradley's actions? And if so, what role did she play? Police couldn't conclude yet, but these findings completely shifted how people viewed her relationship with Bradley. For John Mellow, his fears seemed validated. He had told friends Bradley was wealthy and creepy, and that A wasn't safe with her mother and her fiancé. Though John wasn't in the U.S. when Christina was killed, the revelations about Bradley made people wonder, was he involved in some way to protect his daughter? The case was no longer just a murder, it was a tangled web of dark family secrets. As police investigated John Mellow, their attention turned to another figure. Zachary David Hughes, known as Zach Hughes, was an unexpected player in this case. At 29, Zach was a gifted pianist, once considered a musical prodigy. Born in Morro Bay, California, he grew up in a warm family in Virginia with his parents and younger brother. His life shifted when his family adopted 5 children from Russia, including an older sister, Grace, who had severe psychological issues and once threatened to kill Zach's parents. Though the family weathered those troubles, Zach's childhood lost its peace. To cope, he threw himself into piano and soon revealed rare talent. Zach attended Juilliard, one of the world's most prestigious art schools, and after graduating, he tried joining the Marines but was discharged due to stress fractures during training. He then focused on music, dreaming of performing all 31 of Beethoven's sonatas.
I'm only going to play this music if you pay me for it. That wasn't the spirit that this project was conceived in. It's something that I want to do regardless of whether I can make money at it. Like I would say it's the biggest goal of my life so far.
In 2020, Zach settled in Greenville, South Carolina, where he held free community concerts showing his deep love for the craft. One day, Zach met John Mellow and his daughter A at a performance in downtown Greenville. John, a seasoned music producer, was struck by Zach's skill. After the show, they chatted and John asked Zach to play Claire de Lune, A's favorite. A close friendship bloomed from there. John often confided in Zach about his worries. He feared Christina and Bradley Post were abusing A. Zach, who'd never met Christina, believed John and slowly got drawn into his personal fight. The two launched a harassment campaign to tarnish Christina's image. They sent packets to her workplace, neighbors, and Bradley Post, filled with explicit photos from her time as a prostitute under the name Sweet Caroline Warren. John believed her past, and her tie to Bradley proved she was unfit as a mother. He also accused Christina and Bradley of abusing A, though he had no solid evidence then. These packets weren't just personal revenge. They were an attempt to sway the court against Christina's custody rights. When John was arrested for violating the custody order after returning to the U.S. on October 21, 2021, he named Zach as his sole contact to pick up his luggage at the airport. This showed their deep trust. Police grew suspicious and zeroed in on Zach when they found thousands of messages between him and John. They discovered a bicycle on a neighbor's camera near the crime scene, matching one in Zach's truck before and after October 13th, 2021. His phone was in airplane mode during the murder, and crucially, DNA under Christina's nails matched his. On November 3rd, 2021, Zach was arrested on charges of murder, weapon possession, harassment, and burglary.
But I think it was more than obvious that he intended to kill her. And he went over there for that reason. And talking about the murder itself, it was very intentional, for sure. We don't know why. We don't know what his motive really was.
From a talented artist, Zach became the prime suspect in a shocking case. After the murder on October 13, 2021, the investigation swiftly uncovered dark secrets. Zach Hughes was arrested on November 3rd with charges of murder, weapon possession, harassment, and burglary. But what made the case even more chilling were the revelations about the motives behind Zach's actions. When police searched Bradley Post's phone, they found a stash of child pornography, including images of A and another girl. Bradley was arrested soon after with 6 counts of child sexual exploitation. This confirmed the fears John Mellow had shared with Zach, that A was being abused by Christina and Bradley. John had told Zach he saw the light fading from A's eyes, noting how she'd changed, gaining unusual weight, becoming withdrawn, no longer the lively child she once was. Zach, though he'd never met Christina, believed he had to act to protect A.
She's a really special kid. She was definitely mature beyond her years, like I talked about. She could hold a conversation with adults. She looked you in the eye. John had been telling me for weeks, Zach, Christina's killing my little girl. Like, I can see the spark dying in her eyes. And again, when I first heard that, I thought, aren't you being a little dramatic? Like, I hadn't seen her, but it just seemed a bit much. When I saw her in these visits, I didn't feel that way anymore. She was not the same little girl that I had known in Greenville when I first met them. She had put on a great deal of weight, probably about 20 pounds, which is roughly a quarter of her body weight. For an 8-year-old girl, that's a lot in a short period of time, but it was much more than that. It was her demeanor. Her spirit was just, she was morose, she was depressed, like that spunky, precocious, lively little girl that I had met was just not present there.
In 2022, 2 lawsuits were filed, one by A and one by A's friend, alleging Christina and Bradley abused them and forced them into producing pornographic content. Though Christina was dead, her estate was still sued. Another report targeted Latina Parcell, Christina's sister, claiming she photographed A after a shower, but it was closed for lack of evidence. These allegations, though not fully proven, painted a picture of a dangerous environment A endured. So, was Zach manipulated into John's scheme, or did he act out of justice for A? On February 10, 2025, Zach Hughes' trial for Christina Parcell's murder began. Despite clear evidence, DNA, the bicycle, messages with John, and documents against Christina, Zach pleaded not guilty to the murder charge. The trial lasted 10 days, drawing heavy attention due to its complex and contentious details. Prosecutors argued Zach intentionally killed Christina with a clear plan, while the defense sought to clarify his deeper motives. At trial, Zach admitted to killing Christina on the morning of October 13, 2021. He said he rode a bike to the house with roses, posing as a delivery man to trick Christina into opening the door. When she did and confirmed she was alone, he forced her inside at gunpoint and knocked her down. Zach intended to save A, but hesitated, having never done such a thing. When Christina fought back, he stabbed her over 30 times, then dragged her to the living room and left by bike. The scattered roses, initially thought a ritual, were just from her struggle. Zach said he acted not out of anger, but pity for A. He believed killing Christina was the only way to spare her from abuse. Zach testified that John had offered him $5,000, later raised to $10,000, to kill Christina, but he refused the money and acted out of compassion for A. He believed he was her only savior, as police, courts, and social agencies ignored John and Zach's prior reports of suspected abuse. The emerging truth left people wondering, was Zach a cold-blooded killer or someone swept into tragedy trying to do right? The defense wanted to present evidence of Christina and Bradley abusing A, citing the child pornography on Bradley's phone and John and Zach's unheeded reports to police and social services. They argued Zach acted to protect A when no one else would, but the judge ruled these allegations inadmissible, fearing they'd sway the jury's view of Zach. Prosecutors worried he might be seen as a hero rather than a murderer. Still, the jury wasn't swayed by Zach's story. On February 20th, 2025, he was sentenced to life in prison for 2 counts, murder and possessing a weapon during a crime. From a talented pianist with a bright future, once dreaming of playing on South Pacific cruise ships, Zach lost everything. But the trial didn't end it all. His testimony about John Mellow opened a new chapter, thrusting the controversial father into a legal storm. John, arrested in 2021 for violating the custody order upon returning to the U.S., had been freed after that charge was dropped. He always maintained that his actions, from taking A to Italy to campaigning against Christina, were to give his daughter a better life, away from what he deemed a toxic environment. Facing new charges, John said, "I can only pray and focus on her. I don't care what others think." But could he escape this time, or would he pay for his role in Christina's death?
I can't help their perception. I can only pray and move forward for my child. I can't cater to people. I can't respond to people. You know, I can't do anything but focus all my efforts on the well-being of my child.
Right after Zach Hughes testified in court that John Mellow had offered him $5,000, then $10,000, to kill Christina Parcell, police acted fast. On February 20th, 2025, the same day Zach got life in prison, John was arrested on charges of being an accessory before the fact and soliciting a felony. Though John didn't strike the fatal blow, Zach's testimony, thousands of messages between them, and their prior harassment campaign proved his involvement in the murder. After his arrest, A, the daughter John claimed to protect, was placed in emergency protective care. The case left many questions unanswered. Was Christina truly involved in abusing A, or just a victim of John's accusations? Bradley Post, now in prison for child sexual exploitation, was he the mastermind behind those horrific secrets? And what of A, the girl at the heart of this tragedy? How would she fare after it all? 2 lawsuits from A and her friend against Christina and Bradley remain pending, promising to dig deeper into the truth. This story has no winners. Zach, from a gifted artist to a murderer, lost his future. John, right or wrong in his fears, now faces justice. Christina is dead, Bradley is jailed, and A carries scars that won't fade. Greer, South Carolina, once a quiet town, now bears the mark of a haunting case where love, hate, and secrets intertwined, leaving an ending that weighs heavy on all.